Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of Miyagi Mornings as we complete the first week of this new segment. And Billy Roy Bob has set us off with a great start with a mighty crow. He's developing his rooster vocals. Today, I wanted to let you know before we start that Miyagi Mornings will be its own episode of TSP Podcast. You tell him, Billy Roy. Anyway, so what happens, one of you guys wrote in and said, hey, why don't you just take the audio from all 5 of these every week, spin them together, and make a podcast out of it. I think that guy meant, give yourself a day off, man. Make that a podcast episode. And I thought that's a good idea, but it doesn't really fit with what I'm doing here. Remember, I started this segment and some other initiatives going into this winter after my workshop because I felt I needed to be doing more, not less. This lets me do more and make more out of more, which is really, really cool. So on to today's subject. This came from a viewer of Miyagi Mornings, and they wanted to know some ideas for some crops to start out with as a new greenhouse grower. All right, so I could take this question 100 ways. I've done entire shows on it, but I'm going to take it to mean I bought a greenhouse. I set it up. It's freestanding. It's not artificially heated. It's not some super mega awesome double insulated back wall greenhouse with a compost heap supplemental heating to it. It's not got a thermostatically controlled heater running propane. It is a greenhouse that I bought or built that is a freestanding structure that light can get into. So what do you grow in a greenhouse like that? This bothers some people when they hear it, but you need to grow stuff in there that would probably survive if it wasn't in there at the temperatures you're going to reach. And the reason is, whatever the temperature is outside of your greenhouse at night, so shall the temperature be on the inside of your greenhouse at night. Now, there are some things the greenhouse will help with survival and thriving of plants through the cold nights. Beyond when, of course, here comes another airplane. This is not a jet this time. Beyond just the warmth of the sun during the day when you get the passive solar gain. Mainly this will be with settling of frost onto the plants. It can also be with mist and snow and other things like that. Boy, Billy Roy's on it today. But in general, if it's 24 degrees outside at 3 o'clock in the morning when there's no sun, the temperature inside your greenhouse, unless you do something about it to supplementally heat it, is going to be 24 degrees. So I'm coming at this today from that being the case. Maybe we'll do some segments in the future, how to supplementally heat a greenhouse, how to build a thermal battery. But today, boom, done. So here's the rules for this. Number 1, you want to plant things that can survive a frost. Number 2, you want to get those plants hardened off and up to kind of a sub-adult size at least before the cold fully comes. Okay, so when you have these days that are like 28 degrees for the high, and you're starting little seedlings in your greenhouse, it's rough on them. You're asking a lot. If you look at seedling germination, days to germination, you'll see that varies. I think we just had a hawk fly by, and Billy was upset. Anyway, you'll see it says 7 days of germination. But if you dig deeper, you'll see that's with 70-degree soil. And as the soil temperature goes down, even seeds that will germinate in really cold soil, it'll go down take 60 days to germinate. And that's going to affect the entire growth cycle. So the best strategy with greenhouse growing in really cold climates, I can get away with all kinds of crap in my greenhouse. I do hydroponics, and I grow lettuce and arugula and stuff like that all winter long. I can grow that stuff outside all winter long. It just grows faster in there. But if we want to get a greenhouse kind of really rolling so that we have harvest that we can do all season, think of it like live refrigeration. Okay, so if we take some greens we buy at a store and we bring them home, we set them on the counter, and we take the same greens and we put them in the refrigerator, they last longer in the refrigerator. That's why we put them in the refrigerator in the first place. Okay, they don't spoil; they just last longer. It takes them longer to fully die. We cut it, and the dying process begins, right? And eventually, when it's fully dead, it wilts and it's not very tasty anymore. And then we throw it in the compost or give it to the chickens. So with a greenhouse, we put this on steroids. So now we have a somewhat cold environment that's warmer during the day, and the plants kind of go into a stasis in really cold climates. So we have our cold crops, our broccolis, our cauliflowers, our leaf crops like arugulas and lettuces and spinach. That's the stuff to start with. Carrot is a fantastic crop. It's actually kind of good. You get it up to a certain size, it gets really cold, it stays alive, it stays fresh, and it doesn't grow very fast, so it doesn't turn into some weird looking genetically if you remember Gilligan's Island where they got the irradiated seeds and the carrots look like udders of a cow, like carrots actually do kind of that stuff if you allow them to grow too long and to get too big. So that's where I would start. All things that can generally survive a frost and get them going now. If you start doing supplemental heat and all, one thing I'll add though is really think hard before you're like, well, I'm going to grow tomatoes. I'm going to grow peppers. Are you going to manually pollinate? Anything that needs pollination, you either need to grow kind of like a greenhouse hybrid variety. Hybrid's not a bad word. We're not going to go there today. Hybrid does not mean GMO though, okay? That is designed to grow in a hothouse. This is designed to be self-pollinating. Some plants actually, like there's cucumber varieties. They do very well in greenhouses, even without a lot of pollination. You take a like a Park Straight 8, throw it in a greenhouse through the winter, you got no pollinators. I suggest you get in there with a Q-tip and start finding male and female flowers and doing it yourself, because it ain't going to happen. So you got to think about that too if you're going to do those things. But that's why all of the cole crops, the broccolis, the kales, the Brussels sprouts, and all the leaf crops like lettuces and spinaches and arugula do very well. They don't require that. And we actually like cooler temperatures for them, because you plant lettuce in Texas in August and it goes and it makes a giant spooch out of it and it makes seed, and then it's not good to eat. But you do it this time of year and all through the winter and you get delicious, tasty, crispy lettuce. Spinach, etc. Same thing. Swiss chard, fantastic greenhouse crop. Just look at the things that would generally survive, maybe not the ice storm or the snowstorm, but the cold. Things that can handle 20 degrees temperatures in the 20s. And most of those things will live in your greenhouse. Conversely, a lot of things are kind of cold weather crops but can't quite handle a frost. I've tried doing things like growing snow peas and snap peas in a greenhouse early in the spring. And generally without supplemental heat, you get one really cold night. Like they're fine. Like it gets down to like 28. They're like, yeah, whatever, man, rock on. You get one night where it drops down to like 17. They're like, that's it, I'm out, boss, and they're all dead. So maybe in the future we'll do an episode where we talk about supplemental methods of heating greenhouses and ways to cheat this. But if you've just bought a kit or put together a greenhouse, realize that the advantage that you have is protection from frost fall and things like that, protection from the elements, and warm days. You still get like midsummer days on some days in the winter, and you get more CO2, you get more rapid growth rates, and you get the ability to kind of bring those crops up to almost maturity, and then through the depths of winter kind of hold them there in almost like a stasis. With that, we've wrapped up a week. Remember, if you want this in podcast format, you can get it on Saturday mornings. I'll be putting it out, all 5 of them put together, and these individual ones, I've made them so you can share them with other people who won't sit through an hour and a half of me blabbing on a podcast. Really hope you enjoyed today's episode. I want more of your feedback. Send your feedback to Jack at the Survival Podcast. Put Miyagi Mornings in the subject line. That'll bring it to my attention, and I will try to get your segment into a future episode. Thank you for a great week, and have a great weekend, my friends.